Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mayor of Kingstown, Season 4, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so quite a few storylines to pick from. I'm going to start off with this prison stuff, specifically the stuff with Kyle. The fact is that, obviously, getting the crap beat out of him. His next door neighbor is Callahan, as we learned last episode. I don't know how much Kyle knows about Callahan and how much, because I'm trying to remember. I'm like, I don't think there was any interaction or conversation about him last season with Kyle, was it? Because I know most of the interactions was like Mike interacting with him, but I don't remember if like Kyle ever became aware of Callahan. He might know Callahan by name, but might not know the face. I mean, and even if he knew the face, like he probably wouldn't associate with the voice. So he probably doesn't know that that's Callahan. And it's like, I mean, it's interesting too because like Mike did warn him about kind of like keeping to himself to some degree and stuff. So he is taking help from Callahan because Callahan gives him some cigarettes and then some pain pills to, help with his situation. Because, like, once again, you don't go to the infirmary because you're just asking to get got there. There's also that situation in the opening. Cindy, early days in her job in AdSeg, and that sucks. Where it says the guy, like, kind of went crazy, bashed his head against his bars, pulled out a shiv and just killed himself. And it's just like, and I think it's such an interesting thing where like Kyle had to tell her like, yo, you call for backup right now. So it's kind of nice that she's not as alone in this situation, because I think that infers a lot about where she stands later on when Mike is like, yo, I need you to look after him. She's like, your brother, he's important not to be effed with. But it's like she sees that Kyle is a decent dude, so that probably make her a little bit more okay with the whole situation, because like he's the one that told her like, yo, you need to get back up right now. And even Callahan just being like, fucking Mondays. Cause I guess that's just like, it is what it is type of situation. There's no explanation. I think the guy was just probably like out of his mind and just wasn't mentally in a good headspace, and just kind of like, it just, whatever it was, he just got set off and he just killed himself like that. Kyle also gets visited by Tracy, which Mike had tried to call Tracy earlier in the episode because he wanted her to kind of like, he wanted to brace her for it. We'll circle back to the Mike of it all too, like him and Hobbs. But he tried to brace Tracy for it, and even she says later, like, there was nothing, what was that going to do? It wasn't going to do anything. So initially Kyle went to Carney's like, because he was like, oh, is it Mike that's coming to visit me? He's like, no, it's Tracy. He's like, nah, man, I don't want her to see me like this. And I love Carney's line of, you have to, because if you don't, whatever she's imagining is going to be so much more worse. So much more worse. I always do that. So much worse. And I was like, oh, that's such interesting. And I think it's a thing of like, Kyle needs that, especially when Mike has that conversation with Tracy later on, like tying this all together of like, you can't feel isolated. And even Tracy made it clear to Kyle, like, because he's like, you don't have to come here. Like, if it gets too hard, she's like, I'm in it. Like, don't get it twisted. Because she's like, I know what happens to like inmates who like the family doesn't visit anymore. It's like it breaks them, and I don't want you to be alone. Like, we're in this together. I'm with you. You do have my support, because he knows like, I know you don't support me being in here and the reasons behind it. And she's like, but he's like, I need you to be okay with this. And he's like, I don't want to go 12 rounds. So he's like, well, sorry, we're going. And he's like, okay, I surrender. She's like, yeah, I bet you do surrender. And it's just kind of like her trying to be strong in this situation. Gotta go home to their son in an empty house. Even talks to Mike about like having to wake up, not having Kyle by your side, knowing and scared of what's going to happen to him every day. Because it's like, even with all the power Mike has, something like this happened. Not just out of like, oh, a couple days in. It literally hadn't even made it to his cell and he got jumped. So, and it's like, that's just in day one. It's like how, she's scared and worried about what this place is going to be. And it's like, Mike had told her, like, he's going to need you. Like, you don't have to like fully agree with everything and understand it. You even have to fake it. And she's like, Mike, I'm faking it as good as I can. And he's like, I understand, And because he's like, yeah, this isn't Kyle's fault. Like, Kyle is just trying to do the right thing. He is a good guy. And it's sad that the situation has come to this. It seems like, based on the episode too, that not unless it's a bigger reveal later on, but they make it seem like the guy, at least Bunny told Mike, like the guy that went after Kyle was just some guy trying to like get a reputation. It didn't seem like anyone put him up to it because the Aryans don't have the juice to make that happen. So this guy was just kind of soloing this. So I mean, Mike already knew like people would target him because he's a cop, and killing a cop would give them their bones and their rep in there. Once again, make him royalty, as he said last episode. But yeah, I was kind of certain, like, right, it's got to be an organized thing. It's like, no, I think it's just some guy that heard. I think it probably the entire prison heard about Kyle's being booked and put there, so they're probably like, oh, this is golden opportunity. Or probably got out around the prison is probably all that it really came down to. So, uh, I'll jump back to this later, but Mike owed Bunny a favor. It's like, okay, like, what was it like, Bunny, if you get Raph in the same place as that guy, then I'll have my meeting with Frank. So, and they got him, and I think this was the thing that kind of pushed Kevin to be like, I don't know if I should be here. I think it's probably especially because like Kareem found him out and still kind of like helped him and stuff like that, and obviously like Hobbs is not Kareem, and so it's like can't like manipulate her like he could Kareem, but even Kareem found him out before the end and stuff. So I think it's just like the weight of all of it's getting heavy, and he's even asking Bunny later on like, yo, I could do much stuff on the outside, but it's like, no, this is where you have to be. Will it last forever? No, but it is what it is right now, so you have to take it on the chin. And it's like, yo, keep your head up, but it also made it clear, if you ever show up again around my family, even though he is family, isn't he? Because isn't he Bunny's cousin? Maybe I'm tripping. I could have sworn he was, but maybe I'm misremembering. I could have sworn he's Bunny's cousin, but it's like, you're not fam. You're probably like a distant family cousin, like twice removed type of thing, where it's like, we are family, but it's easy just to call you cousin, but there is some distance. It ain't like we're close cousins. I don't know if that's like what the deal is. But I mean, I guess this whole thing was just kind of like, he already has Hob on him in episode 1, now being part of playing a role in Raph and them getting the guy who attacked Kyle. Like, I think that's probably like, I don't know, man, like it just puts him in such a tough spot that I think that's probably more so why he wants to bail now, especially after everything, because she did bring up the whole situation in last season with him giving a signal and her figuring it out pretty quickly about him. So it's like, yeah, he feels like he's probably not safe to continue working there, especially because like he can't. Like I said, Kareem found him out, but like Kareem handled things a certain way that it's like, I don't know if Hobbs will necessarily handle things that way. So, but since I brought up Frank, it seems like at first I was wondering, like when Bunny's meeting with him, I was like, oh. I was like, do you have history with this guy? He's like, no, but he's an OG, was it from like Detroit? So Bunny knows him by reputation. And he's come here to basically the large power vacuum that like with the Russians being taken out, like that's been left, like the kind of, what was it exactly? I think it's like the exporting like business or like routes that have kind of been left over now that they've kind of been nipped in the bud. So Frank wants to join with Bunny, which I think it's so fascinating. He calls Bunny by his real name, and I'm like, I was trying to remember. I was like, does anyone call Bunny by his real name? I don't even remember if what's her name, Tiffany? That had to be last season, right? I want to say like, wasn't she like his cousin, the one that was kind of like that got killed, the one that seemed like she was kind of sweet on Mike. I want to say it might have been Tiffany, but I don't remember. I don't even remember if she ever called Bunny by his real name. She probably did, but like, it never came up that often that when his name got dropped up. It definitely doesn't come up enough because like when his name got dropped, I was like, oh, that's your name? I was like, have we known that before? That's why I don't remember. And it's interesting too because like, he makes a point to keep calling him that. Like everyone calls him Bunny, but Frank was also making a point to like say like, I'm not going to call you Bunny because of like what that means, like what a rabbit is, and it kind of means like a creature that kind of runs in fear. And it's like, is that what you do? And Bunny's like, I ain't afraid of nothing. So it's like, all right, so we have them sit down and their talk and what they're building, the operations. Frank split, because Frank has legitimized himself and insulated himself so much that he can run, like, I can run drugs through his operation here and kind of be perfectly fine, and he wants to join up with Bunny to kind of help explode that even more, because it's kind of like was it tides raise all ships. I always butcher that phrasing. But he's like, oh, but you misspoke earlier. And Bunny's like, what? He's like, you're not alone. You have a partner. I'd like a meeting with the mayor. And so Bunny sets it up. But Mike also knows Frank's reputation too, even to the point that when he showed up at the office, like, Regina was like, yeah, like, are we like in business? She's like, I don't want anything to do with Detroit. He's like, yo, you want a raise? You can have it, whatever you need. He's like, I forgot what he was saying, stuff to kind of schmooze her, make her feel better, because he's like, I promise you, this is the only time you're ever going to see him, because it's like, I'm not getting in deep with like Frank. He's like, he knows his reputation, so they have their sit down, and obviously he's very interested in Mike and what he has here, because he's like, if I don't take what's here, like Bunny, like being able to kind of get what he's gotten is pretty amazing, but he also acknowledges you're the reason why Bunny's gotten what he's gotten and has been able to keep it, and so he's like, I want you to be a part of all this, because he's like, if I don't fill that vacuum, someone else is. So the best way to keep other outsiders from coming through is to basically let me have it. And so Mike has to compromise, because he's like, right, you can get cut in. Mike's like, I don't want pay. Like, if you want to pay me something, pay me with peace. Because that's all he's tried to do, is try to make Kingstown as peaceful as possible. And I can see the benefit of Frank being here, because it's like he could be this deterrent. But the problem is, like, the thing is, like, oh, Buddy will be part of your insulation too. Like, whatever falls on Buddy won't bounce back to you. And he tells him, like, right, all my partners know that. Like, they will get paid and they're going to make a lot of money, but they understand the risk as well. So it's kind of like, yeah, he co-signs, like, yeah, Buddy, do what you got to do. Like, I'm not saying that Frank isn't someone to do business with, but it's kind of like, I think he was saying the whole conversation about trying to take his kingdom, and Buddy was like, if the OG doesn't kind of like, I think it was kind of like, if he doesn't like pay up and stuff like that and just keep everything copacetic, and if he tries to come for like my blood or whatever, then I'm gonna snatch his effing kingdom, because essentially, they protect what's theirs, and it's like, that's all that matters. That's all that's ever mattered. And Mike agrees, and it's like, I understand. So he's co-signing it, but also trying to keep his distance from Frank. We'll see, because what was it? Bunny referenced Frank being something, and Mike referred to him as like a machine gun nest or something like that. Like, this guy he's got a bad news, and it's only a matter of time till we see like what that erupts and explodes into. But we'll see. I'm curious to see like Frank's continued role this season and where he plays in all of this. I touched on it a little bit earlier, but Mike has his meeting with Hobb about like, well, he was trying to get to the prison before she showed up, but they arrived at the same time, and she's very steadfast in her position, where she's like, I never promised to protect your brother, that nothing would happen to him. I just promised that he was alive. He's still alive. And he's like, okay, cool. Let me clarify this time. Whatever happens to my brother is going to happen to you. And I love that he's like, because she's like, oh, I'm a woman of my word. He's like, I'm a man of my word too. So. Because he's trying to treat it like we're in a partnership, and she's like, no partnership was ever agreed upon. I'm doing my thing. Things happened. She even said, like, yeah, your brother got into a fight. It's like, a fight. It's like, Kyle didn't even, like, get to, like, fight means a little bit tit for tat. And it's like, well, Kyle might have got something in, but for the most part, like, it was a one-sided beatdown. So I wouldn't even call that, like, a fight. Like, because you also can't even say altercation, because that makes it seem so small in comparison. So fight, I guess, is the best word. What I thought was interesting though is obviously in that moment, Hobbs and was this Torres, who was like our right hand guy, we're talking. He's like, "Are you okay, man?" And it seems like, I guess they've been a duo for a while. Like in her previous place, like he was her right hand. Like there's a lot of history there where that's kind of like her right hand guy. And I guess that's all the more important, because I'm sure that helps insulate her from anyone else in the prison, like smoozing up to her, because Torres will always be that wall that kind of blocks, because it's like their dynamic is they're coming into this situation like and blocking out anyone that could get too close and try to manipulate her, because she was planning on removing Carney from his position. It's like, oh, it kind of should have, like, got rid of him like day one, because she knows, like, right, the only reason why Mike knows about any of this is got to be because of Carney. Carney's got to be his guy, so we got to limit how much Mike knows. Can't have him up here doing whatever he wants to. And even she knows, like, later on when the guy who attacked Kyle ends up dead, it's like, yeah, kind of it is what it is. I don't know how much of that all trickled down and led to the end of the episode. I'll get to that later. Because interesting enough, Carney does kind of get all up in Torres' face, because he's with Roberto and they're talking, and Carney breaks it up, and Carney's like, yo, what you doing, dude? Like, 3 paces, like, you coming in here like kind of a newbie or something. And Torres just seemed chill, like the fact is he was approaching Roberto like that, and even Carney bringing it to Hobbs' attention. She's like, yeah, I'll talk to Torres about it. And like, she was looking at him like, I was like, what is that about? Like I said, feels like that ties into the end of the episode, which I might as well go ahead and jump to it. Poor Carney, that sucks. That sucks so much. Especially, like, they make that extra gruesome because, like, and heartbreaking, because it's like, right, he was taking care of his dad when that happened. So you're like, damn, that sucks. And ironically enough, it's the guy they released earlier in they released this episode. The guy who was the only person that survived that was part of the group that took a shot at Bunny last episode. The timing that seems so interesting, so that's why I'm like, I don't know if that's like Roberto being pissed because he knows like Carney is like Mike's guy on the inside, or it's like you're disrupting business or something. So like, I don't know if that's like, I doubt that's a thing of like, oh, Torres did that on his own. Like, that's why I'm almost wondering, like, is Hobbs like a part of this, or like, is she not like the golden saint, the like warden that she pretends to be? Like, is she actually a little more like corrupted than we think? Like, or is that some shit like Torres? Like, was that Roberto? Because they brought it, like Raph brought it up last episode. Roberto's been acting a lot like he's good, like he know. That's why I was like, someone's backing him, and that's why I was wondering, was it Frank? But it seems like that's not the case. So now I'm like, well, the conversation he was having with Torres. So I'm like, is there something up with Hobbs? Like, is she a part of this? Because like the timing is so interesting that like he would break up that conversation between them. He would then later on go to Hobbs about it, and then later in the end of the episode get popped like that, and specifically by the guy that's out and about. That it's like, I mean, the argument could also just be like, because I'm like, why Carney? Why there? It has to be like a Roberto call, but then like, who is he answering to? Like, did someone else make that decision? Not less like that hit wasn't Roberto, that was someone else, because Ian and Stevie couldn't get anything out of the guy. He kept speaking Spanish, and then Ian just kept being as much of an asshole as possible. And like, oh, hablo inglés, and the guy was like, fuck you. He's like, see, you owe me $5, Stevie. And Stevie's like, holy shit. I guess they bet like whether or not the guy could actually understand him or speak Spanish, or speak English or understand English. But they couldn't get anything out of him, so Mike told him to cut him. It's like, and then follow him. But then I don't know. Who knows? Because they were taking off that guy, like that gave him the freedom to sneak off and end up killing Carney. So I wonder who's going to feel bad about that. Because Mike told specifically Ian and Stevie to watch him, but then they got pulled away because of the whole Evelyn of it all, which I'll circle back to in a second. So I'm wondering how Mike going to blame himself, especially because Carney was like his only inside guy. Because I mean, Kevin's there, sure, but like Kevin's not in a position, so that's why he has to. I guess it's a good thing he made the connect with Cindy this episode, because it's like, yeah, like Cindy's got to be your only inside person now that Carney's gone. And there's like I said, Kevin's there, but that's more Bunny's person, and you could use that to your advantage, but not to the same extent. And he's also not in AdSec, so not unless he gets moved to AdSec now, too. Like someone's gonna have to fill that position. So I don't know. Because it's like, would this have happened if Ian and Stevie hadn't let him go? But it's like, what would they? I mean, they could still hold him, sure, but they were never going to get anything out of him. But it's also like, maybe if the Evelyn thing hadn't come up, maybe they could have watched him, because they saw him go into like a rundown place or whatever. And I love that Ian was kind of like, oh, he's doomed. And I think Stevie was like, you think he's doomed? Like, where did you grow up at? Kind of saying like, you grew up in kind of a shit show type of area, and look where you are. It seemed like that was kind of what he was saying. I guess he was. I don't know if Ian was kind of saying like, "Oh, this kid's out here on the streets," because they were even saying like, "Oh, he's like 20 at most," and it's like, "Oh, maybe most likely he." I don't know if he thought like maybe like the streets were going to get him regardless, and just for him to circle back at the end and kill Carney like that is kind of wild. So, but yeah, since I kept bringing it up, the Evelyn of it all, she brings evidence to prove like, oh, Ian, you were in the area when the whole Morrissey thing happened. He was like, no, you didn't see me driving it. There's no plates. There's plenty of those cars here around. Like, so what are you trying to say? And Evelyn still being like, yo, you know what I want. I didn't want it to get to this point, but it is what it is. So I've got my job to do. It's like, yeah, but you are also still willing to compromise because you still have a hard on for Robert. You're willing to let this go for Robert. It's like, it's the thing of Evelyn is just doing her job, but it's the thing of like our characters are our protagonists. So like when they do effed up stuff, I mean, I've kind of always just been like, I get it, they're protecting Robert. Once again, he's kind of a fucking like grenade that keeps having the pin pulled out of it and put back in there. You're just like, it's only a matter of time before he explodes, and he kind of already has. Man, it's not right in the head, and he's, you know, once again, Kyle's sitting up for him, you know, so he doesn't like run his mouth to kind of protect everybody. So Robert continues to be the ticking time bomb that he is and stuff. So I just, it's the thing of like, I get it, like Evelyn's probably right to go after him, but it's like Ian and them are trying to protect everything else, trying to do what Kyle's doing and trying to protect this house of cards from falling down. So Ian can't turn on Robert, even though it probably would be the easiest thing. But it's like, no, the easiest thing is to get rid of Evelyn. We see Ian like timing her route. You're like, Jesus. When you brought that up to Robert last episode, I kept bouncing back and forth of like, I don't know if you were setting Robert up so you can pop him or whether you legitimately want to go after Evelyn. Now, there probably could be, the end result could still also be what I was bringing up last episode. You could go after, send Robert after Evelyn and then pop Robert saying he went crazy, and, you know, and Ian can protect himself in that regard. But I don't know if that's necessarily the route they're going to go. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm like, which is kind of sad. I mean, Mike has kind of given up on Evelyn, literally told her she's dead to him. Like, he's still going to be hurt if something happens to her, and especially if he finds out, like, Robert or Ian had anything to do with, specifically if he finds out Ian had something to do with this. But I think it's also the element of, if anything goes down, maybe this is also what Ian's counting on, that Mike will think Robert did it and kind of take care of, because he's also saying, like, he made it perfectly clear, like, Mike doesn't have his head on his shoulders, right? Like, the easiest thing to do is to take out Evelyn. That makes kind of all their problems go away, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be someone else that eventually slips into that role and, like, kind of goes after you way more doggedly than Evelyn did. I don't know, man. We'll see how this fares out and how this all plays out. It's going to be interesting to see on that front as well. And I touched on it a little too, was Mike's meeting with Cindy at near the at the end of the episode, and him kind of laying out like, right, I need you to look after my brother, kind of like, you know, answer my calls, kind of give him the nod, kind of let him know he's not alone, that you got him. Make sure from like the moment he wakes up to going to the yard to lights out that you look out for him. And obviously, you know, Mike is in a position now where he knows like what she has, what they both coming into this, where it's like, right, he wants to make sure his brother's okay. She's got 3 kids of her own that she's dealing with, so we'll see how that fares and how that shapes up and plays out. But I'm curious to see what Cindy's role, aside from like looking after Kyle, like how that plays out. Because also Mike wanted the list of people that's in AdSet, because he's like, right, there's a lot of people that kind of choose to be there who are also monsters that are put there. So I need to know who's in that same block with my brother. So obviously the most important person of note is Callahan, which he brought up something interesting when he gave Kyle the pill. He was like, oh, the fact is the guy that attacked you is dead. He's like, yo, a cop being able to kind of set something up like that, it's kind of crazy, huh? And so Kyle doesn't take the pill immediately. He puts it away because I think for him, it's like you're trying to grease the palms. You want to get close to me for whatever reason. It's like I got to be weary of you. So because I almost thought he was setting Kyle up to be like caught with contraband or something like that, and that'd be a whole issue. But like I'm curious to see what ends up happening. Like I think Kyle's gonna be probably less going to be more reluctant going forward to listen to that guy because he's like, there's something up here that you're not just giving this away for free. You're always already poking and prodding about like how that whole thing went down. So it's like I got to be careful. I got to keep my head on a swivel type of thing. So we'll see how that plays out. Oh yeah, one final thing I did forget to talk about was the guy who killed Carney left his dad alive because his dad just turned the other way and the guy smiles, which is kind of twisted. But I guess it's almost like you're going to be so scared you're not going to bother saying anything because I'll come back and kill you. But so I figured I thought he was dead too, especially because him and Carney had that whole conversation about like, oh, like I got to live long enough to see so and so hold the Stanley Cup up or something like that, and I thought that was a death flag on him, but it's like, no, Carney. I guess the guy is kind of like, right, you're not going to remember my face because you turned away, so you didn't get a good look at me, so. I wonder, will Mike or Ian or Stevie, sorry, end up really pushing him to get an answer out of what happened? Will he pretend he was asleep and didn't see the person's face at all, or they were wearing a mask? I'm curious to see how that gets handled the next episode. What the major fallout to all of this is going to be, and once again find out whether this has something to do with Torres and Hobbs. It just feels like it does, but we'll see. But I've run my mouth off long enough. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.